how about we just get it started? What do you think, Georgia?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Excellent. Well, welcome everyone to our webinar today. Incredibly thankful and grateful to be speaking and co-hosting this with intelliHR and Henry Reid, and specifically Georgia from Henry Reid. So I'd like to sort of give a warm welcome to Georgia, and I thought we'd just let her introduce herself to get things started.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jarod. Well, I was absolutely thrilled to be asked by intelliHR to co-host this webinar. I've got more than 25 years organisational design, human resources, culture experience, and probably about 3 years ago I started my own consulting business called Henry Reid, and we work with organisations who value people and who really want to be able to optimise their organisational effectiveness through culture and people, because for us everything starts with culture. So we're based in Brisbane. We support clients nationally and really work with organisations who are focused on understanding their current culture, designing their optimum culture, and creating an environment where they can have competitive advantage, where they can mitigate risks, and when they can achieve results the best through their people. So I love what I do. We work with some amazing organisations, and really thrilled to have a great team around me as well who are passionate about the impact of people. That's a little bit about us.
Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing, Georgia, and really looking forward to understanding a little bit more, I guess, how the current situation has affected your business, obviously being that small business, as well as the organisations you're working with as well. Just thought I'd introduce myself as well. My name is Jarod Hart. I'm a partnership manager over here at intelliHR. For those of you that don't know, intelliHR is a people management platform focusing around configurable automation, continuous feedback, HR analytics and insights, and really allowing organisations, I guess, to take their HR to the next level. It's been quite a eye-opening experience over the last few weeks to sort of travel along with a lot of our customers, and as well as an organisation working through the current crisis, I guess, with COVID. And I guess I thought I just wanted to preface a lot what we're about to talk today, and sort of bring up the topic of discussion as well. So business as unusual or usual, and I guess where that actually came from, and Georgia and I sort of sat down and discussing what we're experiencing in the industry right now, and we were talking about business continuity and people really trying to get business as usual, but finding that business is unusual, and probably finding that the unusual is actually now the new usual. So really, I guess, looking at COVID from a different point of view, and definitely understand that a lot of organisations going through some really troubling times right now. And so I think as a change of pace, what we're really trying to design for this, I guess, webinar is to focus on some of the transformation that can come out of COVID, and maybe some of the positives or the light at the end of the tunnel, and I guess how to get there. And I guess that's where that conversation started, and really hoping to provide some valuable insights around that so that you can walk away and action some items into your workplace to really be able to see that light of the tunnel and get there either as fast or come out, so you're really sort of embellishing sort of your organisation and your team. Now, a little bit of housekeeping, like we've sort of spoken about, please keep chucking questions out through the chat bar. We are keeping track of it all. When you jump in, make sure that you sort of say hello, where you're from. Really want that sort of discussion piece. This is a lunch and learn, despite most people be lunching and learning, working from home right now. And look, this recording will also be sent out to everyone. And unfortunately, some people can't make it. This will be sent out, as well as some of the key takeaways, as well as some resources which we'll touch on. But that's enough for housekeeping. I thought we'd just jump straight into it. And Georgia, I love to sort of ask you, I guess, with COVID-19 changing the workplace so fast, how have you seen businesses transforming? What barriers are they coming across? What have you been sort of helping organisations with?
It's changed even when we, since when we had the idea to do a webinar when we first discussed it. The environment's changing so fast, and I think everyone is still in very much a reaction mode, because things are being forced upon us, changes are being forced upon us daily. And what I've seen is organisations go through an awareness, oh my gosh, this is going to affect us, we don't really know how much, to an understanding of, all right, we need to take action. What does that look like? We need to change the way we do business. And some of the things that businesses that I've been speaking to really understand, firstly, they either didn't have a business continuity plan or a crisis management plan in place, or if they did, they were out of date and they're quite ineffective. And the challenge of having some people work flexibly and work from home, as opposed to having everybody work flexibly and work from home, has been enormous for a lot of businesses, even from the technology side. Organisations that suddenly say everyone work from home, but we don't have enough laptops, or people don't have computers or devices. So there's been an incredible pressure on organisations to act quickly. To make decisions quickly. In a lot of organisations, we might have previously seen this paralysis by analysis. Decisions don't get made quickly. It's too big for us. We need to think that through. There hasn't been the time for that. Businesses have had to make decisions quickly. They've had to really look after, start to think differently. And I think organisations who thought they could continue business as usual, but with remote working and flexibility of working, have really been challenged by that. The organisations who have been more adaptable and thought we can't do business as usual, and some of them can't because they've been closed down, and who have actually taken a focus on employee well-being and understanding that employees are suffering an incredible amount of anxiety at the moment, that there is a huge amount of change, there's an incredible amount of different priorities for employees. Those businesses who are relying on their culture and falling back on that to enable decision making are in a much better place and better able to adapt than those who are still trying to do business as usual in a different environment. So I think the change, we are still in a reaction phase. We will go from a reaction to reality, to then preparation for recovery. So I think we've still got some way to go.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think, I guess organisations are taking this journey at different times as well. Yep. Some may have entered the reaction stage earlier than others and are sort of slightly ending up on the lower end, sort of the end of it as well, and getting prepared for that reality, I guess. And we were having a discussion the other day around, I guess, business decisions. And that almost the decision-making process has almost completely gone out the window, because you need to make a decision now. Are your workers going to work from home from tomorrow onwards? Or unfortunately, do you need to make another decision? You're just being forced to make decisions. I think there was a big craze over LinkedIn yesterday talking about tech enablement. What's been the catalyst for it? Is it your CTO, CEO? And it was COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Jarod, when we talk about decision making, I'm going to talk a lot about culture because I'm so passionate about it, and I believe it actually makes all the difference in the world. So those companies that had a strong sense of culture, they have a defined purpose that is well understood and well communicated. They have a future focused with an aspirational vision. They have values that are translated into demonstrated behaviours within the business, and they have leaders who consistently reinforce that. The decision making is easy because the culture supports leaders and supports employees through decision making. It makes it easy. We've got something to fall back on. And the solid framework for culture as well is around having a strong strategy, understanding risks and governance. And when you start to align all these things, the decisions become easy. Because if you've got a culture that is really focused on well-being and care and community, the decisions and how you react are driven by that. So for me, I think the decision-making leaders who have work in an organisation with a strong culture and employees who work in an organisation with a strong culture, the decision-making and the adaptability is actually supported by that culture.
Yeah, I think we'll jump into, I guess, the agile framework in a little bit and sort of explaining how that's. But I've just noticed that the poll results have popped up, and people are sort of really working remotely, communicating effectively, seem like the sort of leading to. And I know sort of Todd just actually asked a question very similar to what I was about to, but I'd love to sort of understand, I guess, from a culture perspective, keeping in mind those are sort of the key issues people are facing right now. How obviously the world's looked completely different to what it did a month, 2 months ago, and plans are almost been thrown out the window, unfortunately. How, from a culture perspective, can you help sort of keep the communication high, keep people aligned to the values the organisation is, especially when people are working remotely?
Yeah, so communication's a key part, and it really is challenging a lot of leaders, and it's challenging a lot of employees at the moment. I can see that communicating effectively on the poll, it's about 30% of people are saying that that's one of the key issues that they're facing. So I'm sure this is something everyone's noticed. We've all jumped onto Zoom, so we're doing Zoom now. But we're doing Zoom a lot more. And so some businesses are finding they're having more meetings. Some businesses are finding their meetings are more effective because they are shorter, sharper, they're sticking to an agenda. But communication really needs to tick a whole lot of boxes. So there's different reasons for communicating. Are you communicating to check in and see how your employee's doing? Are you wanting to have a meeting to keep business working, to be looking at how we're problem solving or sharing results? Are you celebrating successes? Are you providing feedback? There's so many different reasons for communicating, and I think it's really easy to get drawn into let's just use a Zoom meeting. But there's lots of different technology out there. So my team use Slack regularly. We message regularly. We also use Zoom meetings, but we pick up the telephone. I think one of the challenges with going through this incredible change is for leaders and teams to understand how to stay connected and have a sense of community while communicating in different ways. So I think it comes back to your basics of communication. Understand why you need to communicate, think about the best method of communication, think about the messaging, who's on the receiving end, how are they actually going to respond to that. And I think with the challenges of remote working, we also need to be aware that our employees are really challenged with other competing priorities at the moment. They might have kids at home who they're trying to homeschool, who they're trying to get onto the technology to do a dance class by Zoom meeting or a music lesson or join a classroom or do an exam. My son's at uni, and so he was trying to do uni exams. I was trying to hold webinars. There's a whole lot of challenges that as leaders, and when we're looking at the appropriateness and the frequency and the type of communication, we need to be understanding and we need to be flexible, and we need to really look at what our employees need. So don't be afraid to ask the question, have a phone call, do a check-in. How are you? What are the biggest issues that you've got at the moment? As a leader, how can I support you? And come to some understanding that not everyone can follow a strict schedule that they could have at a physical workplace.
Completely agree. Look, flexible and adaptive is words that we're sort of, I think we'll keep coming back around to, because it's what organizations are almost being forced to do. And I guess that sort of wraps into this whole idea, which is when we started talking about, the future of work. And we all had this idea of, I guess, what future of work was, and there's AI and there's technology, and we're all heading there eventually, and we'll get there. And I think we're moving there a little bit faster than anticipated, which is quite exciting to see. And I think that's really driving a lot of change for organizations, because I guess this future of work idea is almost knocking on the doorstep right now. And I think tech is pushing this, culture's changing this, communication, and I love you touching on, and we sort of always ask this, especially when we're communicating through these different forms, but why? Why are you about to send that message? What's the meaning behind it? How can you communicate this better? People are really thinking, coming into meetings with more sort of structured agendas, and we're getting more from a business efficiency and productivity point of view out of that as well, which I think is really cool to see. And I think even internally, we've had a lot of employees being working from home, and that's always been a part of our culture. But now everyone working from home is something different again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so really sort of loved you touching on those few points there. I sort of might just jump into the next question. And it is around that sort of future of work, but we're talking about being flexible and adaptive. And it's come a lot sort of faster than we did. And we keep coming back to this sort of agility mindset. So what have you sort of experienced around agility in the workplace, how that's affected organization development? What are you sort of doing with your clients at the moment?
Look, we've seen, and we work mainly with mid-sized organisations. We've seen, when we talk about the future of work and preparing for the future of work, I think a lot of organisations keep thinking that's down the track. And the future of work was always about digital transformation, artificial intelligence, how we're looking at doing things differently. One of the challenges that I've always had with organisations is getting them to understand the incredible benefits of flexibility and the incredible benefits of actually working with employees to look at how they can contribute differently. So one of the biggest challenges around that has always been mindsets, and we hear a lot about fixed and growth mindsets. I think even that for the future of work's thrown away. A growth mindset's great if we're looking at growing what we already do, but we need an explorer mindset or an innovator mindset where we're actually not looking at just growing what we already do, but how we actually do everything completely differently. For me, one of the changes to work, and I believe that work will never be the same again, is that we've changed mindsets from a lot of leaders who have been challenged by people wanting to work from home. People who, and this for me, the heart of this is trust, not just around, someone's actually not physically in the office, but do I trust my employee to be productive and work from home? I think right now the focus is not on profit or productivity. It's around flexibility and looking at capability and how we reimagine work. And we actually don't focus on traditional job roles. There needs to be a focus because a lot of people can't actually do their job the way that they have been doing their job. And so when we start to think about contribution and how people can be doing things differently, it's really, really important. I think another big change is to organisational hierarchy. So you mentioned agile teams, Jarod. When we start to move to a work environment like online, where we have to reimagine jobs, when we have to actually stay engaged with our employees, provide them meaningful work, have connection and a community, and traditional organisation hierarchy is going to be quite inflexible and ineffective. And I think that's a real challenge for leaders to get their head around, is this idea of agile teams and how we can actually harness the power of our employees. They've got all the skills and knowledge, they have ideas, they can innovate, but not in a traditional way where we would have normally structured work. And I think that is the amazing opportunity for looking at change as we continue to progress in this environment. And one of the statistics I always love about change is that 70% of change fails. And the reason for that is organisation cultures actually don't support change. So if you're in an organisation that doesn't have a strong culture, it's not well defined, it's not role modelled by leaders, this is actually the time when you need to be looking at understanding it and designing it to help move your business forward so that you can implement change successessely. Yeah. So I've probably gone way off topic there, Jarod, but that's something that I'm...
You go.
I was going to say it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I think for organisations, the new normal and that new the new way of work is going to be embracing flexibility. It's going to be embracing change. It's going to be using technology, but it actually is such an amazing opportunity, because it means that we've broken down a lot of barriers that have been too hard for many organisations to even consider in the past.
Completely. And I think sort of touching on that, I've written it down, it sort of doesn't make sense, but I guess we're preparing for a change in the future whilst working in a changed environment right now. We're trying to prepare for things, and we're already communicating differently. We're already having to approach things that we haven't come across before. We just onboarded someone completely virtually, and that's a new experience for us. And we're trying to work out how we're doing that in the future, while still trying to work on it now as well, and learning new things every day. And I think going back to that whole growth mindset, you're completely right. It's more internal growth rather than external growth is probably what we're seeing here. And we spoke about quite extensive last week as well around growth. Growth is optional right now, I guess. We're seeing some organisations who, and unfortunately this might be from circumstances they can't control, but are going into hibernation, who are taking a step back, getting the resources ready, preparing for this new world, which they'll wake up and walk out and everything will be different. Business is not like we've seen it before, and it won't be. It's the organisations now that are rolling with the punches, taking each day differently, because we are learning as a community, as an industry, each and every day something new, which is quite exciting. I think you touched on, even from our last conversation, this conversation has got a different direction because it is so
Absolutely. And I think the information that we're receiving from the government daily is changing our response and reaction as well. And we need to be mindful of that. I mean, last Friday, when I heard the Prime Minister say, this is the time for business to go into hibernation, it made me angry, because this is not the time. I understand a lot of businesses do not have the ability to continue or to pay employees. But for those businesses that do have the capability and the cash flow to continue, this is not a time for hibernation. And then on Sunday, when we learnt about the JobKeeper support, I was like, oh, thank God. That is fantastic, because those businesses who were told to hibernate now have some financial relief to be able to engage employees rather than stand them down. Employees have some reduced anxiety around financial pressure. And it means that businesses who were told on Friday to hibernate can now take a breath and say, all right, we actually have a strong family or community of employees that we can continue to support. And as well as financial support, one of the most important things is emotional support and well-being, and creating a community and a sense of connection, and for employees to still feel that they're valued and able to contribute. And this is where I talked about that sort of, let's not talk about the roles that people used to do. Let's talk about what is possible in the way that we can start to engage with our teams and our employees to prepare for the future of work, and what that will look like, so that business can come out, even though they can't do business as usual right now, they might be examining what have been our key roadblocks and challenges that we've had in the past that we haven't had the time to address or look at doing differently. What are the things that we can actually do? How can we develop our employees so that they're better equipped to take on different challenges? There's so many different opportunities. And as I said, looking at culture, for me, that's a really big one. How do we actually make sure our culture is going to be supportive of change? And let's engage all of our employees in this process, so that there's a huge amount of brain power and ownership and ability to be flexible moving forward. So for me, the changes in the last week, from hibernation to JobKeepers to seeing what's possible, it is a roller coaster, and I really feel for leaders, and that's where I guess what we've been doing is reaching out to the leaders in the organisations we support and just saying, what are the challenges right now? How can we help right now? What are the things that you can support with? And a lot of people, as I said up front, they're still in that reaction mode. But to think about what's next, it's around the what's next needs to be engaging your employees and looking after your employees' well-being and connection and value add, and so that they've still got a sense of achievement, but doing that in a way that's still understanding and showing empathy for their personal situations and the flexibility. So there's a lot of balls in the air. There's a lot of things to juggle.
Completely. And I was imagining in my head, I guess, everyone's going on different roller coaster rides right now.
Oh, yeah.
We've got employees going on one, and then you've got personal life, and then you've got the government affecting your organization and your personal life. And there's dips, and there's highs, and there's dips again. And it's all over the place. And sometimes they sync up and sometimes they don't. And I think organizations are growing more and more aware of this, and understanding that, like you sort of said, engaging employees and employee well-being is a focus. And I mean, I'm sitting here saying this, and I experienced it last week as well. I mean, I know I need to be taking care of my well-being and should be focusing on things, but I had a rough week last week, and that's okay. I worked through with my team and all over the phone rather than in person, because that's that's what's presented with us. That's the world we live in.
Absolutely. And Jarod, I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who hasn't had a bad week last week or this week. I've seen all our future business projects be put on hold. I've seen new business come in as well as people start to see the advantages of working on culture, and also the need to get expert help. But there's so much uncertainty around what's happening, what the future holds right now, from every person's perspective. I guess I've got another poll question that I'd like to ask, if we can get that put up there. I'd really be interested to see from everyone who's on the webinar, has the way your company has reacted and responded to the COVID-19 crisis, has that reflected your company's culture positively or negatively? Because I think in these times when there's so much change and quick reaction, it's interesting to see whether the culture's actively being lived or whether there's something that's, they're going back to something that's probably not as positive. So I'd be interested to see everyone's results on that as they come through.
Whilst they're coming through, I'm going to throw you a little bit of curveball.
Sure.
You mentioned uncertainty, and employees facing that and organizations facing that. How does that affect on culture? And what have you seen, and how can you help people through uncertainty by, I guess, relying on organization culture and the values?
Yep. So uncertainty is one of the greatest causes of anxiety, and we have a lot of our employees who are in an incredibly uncertain time. We don't know what's going to be the impact on families, on health, on certainly even looking at the economy, the recovery. There's so much uncertainty. What I like to work with when I work with my clients, I actually have a model of organisational effectiveness, which I'm going to share with everyone who's on the webinar today. But one of those environment factors is around clarity. And when we talk about uncertainty, clarity and communication and consistency are really, really important. And one of the things with uncertainty, we need to focus, and as leaders in businesses, we need to focus on what we know. And we need to tell people what we know right now, so that even that sharing of information of this is what we know and this is where we're at right now, gives people something firm to hold on to and to understand. We don't have all the answers, no one does, and it's a really uncertain environment with things changing. But if people know, okay, I'm going to be doing this, or my employer needs me to participate in a program, or I know when to expect communications. So small bits of certainty and clarity are really, really essential to make sure that we help with that anxiety from uncertainty.
I think those poll results have just come through there, so I might let you deconstruct those.
Fantastic.
Quite interesting there. So 47 people came back saying it's reflected the culture positively. Why do you think that is, Georgia? Would you like to sort of walk through that?
That just makes me happy to see that the companies are responding and the company's culture, you know, that the response has been positive. I think that's so fantastic to see. Yeah, it's what I would really hope to see, and to know that employees, I mean, this is a time when leaders have to be doing things differently. They're uncertain. They're going through an incredible change as well. To see that companies have responded positively and that culture's been a positive reflection, fantastic. So great to see that. I was really interested to see the result of that poll question. A couple there negative, but you know, hopefully that changes. As I said, we're still in a really big response phase. We need to go into that preparing for recovery phase, and hopefully that's when things can become more positive as well.
And what would you say to those organisations who are sort of looking to go into that recovery stage or move through the cycles and want to make sure that they're still sort of doing positively? What would your sort of advice be?
I mean, the advice for businesses is that they need to look at how they can remain sustainable. It's not a time to be trying to focus on profit. It's a time to be focusing on cash flow. How do we take advantage of the support that's available out there? Get expert advice as you need it. How do we make sure that if we're going to prepare for a recovery mode, that we're actually keeping the key people in our business engaged and connected? There are going to be tough decisions that are going to have to be made, but making those with a future focus, not a reactive focus, is essential. So businesses are really challenged on every front right now, but for me, it's about making sure that they are connected with and understanding their employees. They are making decisions that go back to the heart of culture, which is purpose and you know, that future focus, the vision and the values that guide their decisions, behaviours and actions. Use that as the fallback position. What are the things that are important to this business? That will help businesses pivot. But I think the focus more than anything, you know, is that from a business perspective is sustainability, which is about cash flow and getting the support you need. And from an employee perspective, it's about care and well-being and creating a sense of community and being empathetic and understanding and kind and flexible, and all of those things that for a lot of leaders might be a challenge. You know, I do a lot of work in emotional intelligence, and a lot of leaders can be challenged with when decisions need to be based in emotionally intelligent factors rather than just purely business revenue strategic outcomes.
I think I always think about, I mean, solutions almost always need a problem beforehand. And this is where we're sort of coming up to that, where people are solutionizing and stepping out of the box, and innovation is coming out of all different nooks and crannies of organizations, businesses, the industry, which is incredible to see. And I think we even sort of sat down internally and you think about what you're going to do next, or how you're going to approach this problem. And we went back to, I guess, the why. And I love sort of going back to the why. It's very Simon Sinek, but I love them. But going back to the why, and so we said, okay, why do we do what we do? And intelliHR, we love helping organizations to get the best out of their employees. So how can we take that why and then approach this new problem that we've come across and implement that? And sort of, it's really, and I think someone sort of mentioned around clarity and consistency, and we're really driving home with that. It's pulling it all back together. Thanks, Joe, for that. Excellent.
Perfect.
Well, we have a few more questions, but I have seen a heap of questions come through on the chat. So before we jump into the question and answer, I do encourage people throughout this to quickly jump in and put their questions in as well. It's just in the Q&A part of the panel on the side. I wanted to sort of just quickly ask you, Georgia, I guess, what are you doing in Henry Reid as an organisation right now? We've just talked about organisations solutionising and sort of coming up with ways to sort of help organisations. Is there anything sort of particular or a focus you're having moving forward right now?
Well, we went out to all the people we're connected with, and particularly our clients, past and present, and actually just said, first and foremost, are you okay? And is there a challenge, or is there something that we can do to support you? And we obviously work with a lot of people in HR functions who are extremely under the pump at the moment, and overworked and pressured. And so we're here, even if you just need to need to debrief and download and go, oh my God, what else is happening out there? So we're here to provide support. As a business, for us, we've had to look at our business continuity and what that looks like for us. We're quite lucky that we've been working with organisations Australia-wide for the last 3 years. So this is actually our office. It's at my home. We decided 15 months ago that we no longer needed a city-based office, and moved back. So we normally have 4 people working in this space here. We reduced overheads. We didn't have to maintain an office environment, and we've been using technology for a number of years already. So we've been able to transition everything that we would normally do with culture audits to culture design workshops to executive coaching. We've been able to make some changes to put that all online. We're actually next week going to be running our first online focus groups with multiple attendees and breakout rooms, and using different types of technology to be able to create word clouds and get feedback, instead of having, people write on Post-it notes and put it on a wall. So there's possibility in everything, the way that we can do things. So we've made changes here. We were lucky that we didn't have to make a lot of change, because we've been working remotely and with clients remotely for a couple of years. But it's a massive transition for a lot of organisations.
Yeah, most definitely. And we've sort of definitely been experiencing that here at intelliHR, and both internally and with our clients. I mean, we've been doing a lot of work with them, sort of going through some really interesting and tough times. And COVID's been moving so fast, and we've really been trying to drive that through technology, and have been fortunate enough that our platform can sort of help organisations during this time where you do need to do the wellbeing check-ins, and you need to be sending out and constantly having that ongoing pulse on culture and engagement from an employee's point of view. And we actually, I guess, and this is part wrapping back again, us being sort of and organisations being presented with, you need to be agile or you go into hibernation. So we had to think quickly and sort of have put out, and been keeping us very busy, I can tell you that, which has also been a great distraction from everything. But designed this COVID-19 essentials platform, which we're sort of giving out to any community, to any organisation, to our whole community, free of charge, to sort of really help people through these times. And we've had to sort of pivot as an organisation and go, look, we want to do this because this is helping employees, helping organisations and leaders going through this tough time as well. So that's definitely been an interesting experience for us internally.
And I think, that's just an amazing initiative from intelliHR. And I think one of the first things we talk about when we meet with new clients is what type of, how do you engage with your employees? How do you share information? How do you set performance expectations and review that? And I think leaders who don't have a system or a platform to fall back on right now are going to find that that's challenging. They don't have visibility of information. They don't have ways to be able to engage effectively, and it's really going to challenge them. So I think that's fantastic, Jarod. Great job.
Yeah, also I can't take any credit for it. It was my husband's team. I'm just representing them today. But yeah, it was awesome on their behalf, and I'm incredibly grateful for working and being a part of that team as well. Look, there's a whole heap of questions, so we can jump into the question and answer.
Let's do that.
Because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussions and a lot of input, which I'm really looking forward to. And then we can finish it up with a little bit of next steps and some key takeaways people can, I guess, really action into their business. to help talk about a lot of these things that we've spoken about today. Really driving culture in this change sort of management future of work scenario that we're going with, how to sort of grow internally and how to keep employees engaged. We'll sort of really touch on a few key parts there, but I thought we'd just jump into some questions.
Great.
Excellent. Just got to go up. Excellent. So I've got one here. Not too sure who's it from. Apologies. So there will be a world where COVID and a world post-COVID. Businesses are being broken whether they like it or not. How should businesses plan for improving their culture for the new world? Yeah, I think we touched on it a little bit, but Georgia, what would you sort of do there?
I think it's a time to really go back to why does the business exist? So go back to that sense of purpose. Is that still relevant? Is that going to be relevant for the future? And really a good sense of purpose and belonging as to the real reason and to why the organisation exists. If it's the right purpose, it'll survive change such as this. It's then about potentially creating a new vision. What is the vision for this business for the future? Vision drives strategy, and if you don't have a vision that's strongly going to be able to deliver on purpose, which is then going to define changes in strategy, it's going to be very difficult to enable change. And again, the behaviours. What are the behaviours? The behaviours that we thought, or the values that we thought were essential in running the business a month ago, they may not be the essential behaviours that we need to, or values to drive the business. Well, the values might be the same and the behaviours might look differently. So I think it starts, first of all, if you're looking at creating culture for a new environment, start with the basics of purpose, vision and values, and what does that need to look like? Are they actually setting us up for sustainability and success moving forward? And I'm going to talk a little about my model for organisational effectiveness. To me, that's the heart of a business.
Yeah,
the next part is a solid framework which supports culture, or culture supports, and that's strategy, governance and risk. So if there's a change in vision or a change in environment or a change in the way that we interact with customers or a change in our supply chain so we can no longer make the products that we needed, what is our change of strategy? Do we have the governance in place to support that, the systems, processes, policies? And what are the risks that we face? How can all of that solid framework of strategy, governance and risk support our purpose, the achievement of our long-term vision, and are the values still aligned? They're the couple of key things. The third part of the model is about the environment that's created, and that is all about the impact of leaders and the leadership ability. And there's 6 elements. The first one is clarity. We've talked about clarity before. Does everyone actually know what's happening? And that comes back to that uncertainty, Jarod, as well. Let's keep people informed and have clarity about how they contribute to the strategy, the understanding of governance, understanding of risks, why we're doing the business, what our vision for the future is, and what are the behaviours we expect. The communication, we touched on that earlier. Then it's around care and community. And these are 2 elements that I've had organisations I've worked with say, that's not care and community. We don't see that as an essential part of environment and for our leaders to be on. I bet they do right now. I bet they can see why this is an important part of my organisational effectiveness model. It does differ for different organisations. The level of care and the level of community does depend. It's on a sliding scale. But care and community are such an important part of an organisation's culture and the way leaders interact. And the final 2 elements of that third sphere of my model is around commitment. So is everyone committed that this is what we're doing? And consistency. Are we actually delivering this consistently across the business? Are leaders being consistent? Is the messaging consistent? So when you start to look at those things, so you've got the heart of it, the purpose, vision and values, strategy, governance and risk, clarity, communication, care, community, consistency and commitment, what you end up with is the impact of culture, which is engagement, alignment and accountability. And what we need for an agile future is we need aligned employees. We need people who are going to be accountable for delivering results. albeit in a very different way than a traditional model, and who are engaged and motivated and wanting to contribute. Because when you get that impact of culture, you start to get innovation, you get discretionary effort, you actually get such a greater commitment. And this is where sort of looking at a model for organisational effectiveness that's not built on a traditional hierarchy, that actually is all about everyone having an understanding of how they contribute and why they contribute, is essential for creating culture of that future of work. So yeah, as I said, I'll be sharing my model with everyone after this anyway. But for me, creating culture is, let's go back to basics. Let's see, do we have what we need in place as the guiding principles? Also, unwritten ground rules. What are the unwritten ground rules that have prevented us from being successful or stopped us from doing things in the past? Let's throw those away and let's rewrite them.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing. I love sort of focusing on that center, and then you move out and start focusing on the others, and all the C's, consistency, clarity, they're all so important. Just pulled through a question from Sean. Hey guys, what methods do you feel is most effective to keep staff feeling connected whilst many are working from home? And I think that's quite a great question, considering so many people, that's a big struggle for them. I thought I'd jump in and sort of just put out maybe a few examples of what we're doing internally,
Sure.
even to sort of, that might sort of provide some. And it's been a pleasure, and I'm not looking forward to it later this afternoon, but we do have a daily planking session where we sit down and have a bit of fun and exercise, which is something so short, it takes less than 5 minutes because we're not very good at it. But we'll get there. And something just small like that has been something I've been looking forward to the last few days, where we're just jumping on as a team. It's organisation wide open to everyone, so they can jump in and do something fun like that. We've still been keeping communication high with Slack and GIFs, and also just trying to be involving as sort of many different parts of the organisation and different bits and pieces. I was invited to a design session the other day, something I probably wouldn't normally do in the workforce, and sort of getting to experience and communicate with people that I guess aren't in my direct team, which is sort of, now that we've moved to this different work environment, I'm finding I'm working more and more with, and we're getting great, I guess, results as a team. But some other people that I'm not running into the kitchen and stuff, unfortunately missing those interactions, and need to think of other ways that we can sort of engage and communicate through that. And that's for us has sort of been an interesting one, working on different projects together and fun, wacky Zoom and Google Hangouts. What about yourself, Georgia?
Look, we're a small team, so we keep in touch all the time. But what I encourage people to do is, you know, you've got a whole lot of people out there with a whole lot of ideas, so ask them and be respectful if they don't participate, because they've got so many competing priorities as well. But look for ways, particularly as leaders. So as leaders, you've got to be reaching out constantly to keep your team connected. And connection in those ways, Jarod, is great. The planking sounds hideous to me, just sounds like torture. But, you know, a good way to have a laugh and stay connected. So encourage employees to do that, encourage teams to stay connected, use technology for chats. Don't always jump to a Zoom meeting, because it can be really challenging for a lot of people who have competing priorities, and kids who are homeschooling and doing different things. Pick up the phone, FaceTime. So I think the communication and the connection is really important. But one of the things as leaders as well is to really look at the ways that your employees can add value. So what are the things? Don't think of your employees as having to do their traditional job role. So when we're talking about engagement and how we actually connect and how we're keeping people connected to the organisation, value their ideas, value their contribution, and celebrate successes, share good news stories, I think is really important as well. Yeah, sure. So there's so many ideas out there. I've would encourage you to talk to your employees, find out what they need, find out what is fun for them. I see so much great stuff on social media at the moment. One of the great things from COVID-19 is a sudden shift from selfishness and self-absorption and prioritizing what I need to a greater sense of the community, apart from the toilet paper stupidity that happened originally. But we're seeing these amazing Facebook groups come up, people sharing acts of kindness, reaching out to the communities that they're in, reaching out to people that neighbours they may never have spoken to. It's really heartening to see the community coming together. And this is what you need to do at work. Reach out and find out what are the things that we have not done in the past that actually will make a difference to you, and your employees will have all the ideas in the world.
Yeah, completely. They're sitting at home just thinking of ideas left, right, and centre.
and they know what they need. They know what they need. They can't have a regular Zoom meeting at 10 o'clock every morning because their kids are, they've got one laptop and their kids need to be doing an online lesson. That's okay. Ask them what they need. And so it needs to be some flexibility.
Most definitely. And there's a whole heap of questions come through because I've just found the question and answer part, and I apologise. And we will sort of answer any other questions in some of the emails that we communicate out with afterwards. But I'll just ask another one as well. I've got one from Joe. What are your observations about the more traditional institutional organisations? That's a very interesting question, Georgia.
It is. And I think institutional organisations, large organisations that are hierarchical, in particular, traditional, inflexible, what they're going to do is they're going to struggle. So when I talk about when we need to try and look and be adaptable and understanding that model, where we've got that purpose, vision, values, quite a lot of organisations, institutional organisations have a strong sense of purpose. There's a lot in the not-for-profit space that have a really strong sense of purpose and clearly aligned values that define behaviours and a strong vision. But where those businesses fail, will find it difficult is in that strategy, governance and risk area, where they may not be as flexible to be able to respond and set things up for change as more mid-sized business. And I predominantly work with mid-sized business, but at the moment we are working with a large institutional organisation, and they are incredibly focused on change, but making sure that they've got alignment from a board level and a board level of understanding of why the change, where the focus needs to be, through to the executive level who have to actually enable it, and then how that's rolled down through every level of the business. It's a real challenge because those systems and frameworks, that strategy, governance and risk area, don't change easily. So it's around then how do you actually use that strong sense of purpose and the values to guide things and the aspirational view of the future to then make that the basis, and the environment that you create, make that the basis for change. You've got people at the moment who can't do their normal job roles. Yeah. Set up project teams, look at ways that you can actually engage people within the business to problem solve, to look at changing some of those things that traditionally have been very, very difficult to change. But I agree, institutional type of organisation is always difficult to make impactful change quickly.
For sure. Thanks for sharing, Georgia. And I think being conscious of time, wrap up with one question, which is going to lead straight through into our last part, but Maria, who's unfortunately had to leave us, but I'm sure she'll watch on the video. Any suggestions, app tools that we're using apart from the planking session, which is not ours, by the way, we borrowed. And I think this is a big we're looking on LinkedIn and just seeing what other people are doing. I think our team got challenged to a dance off on Zoom as well this morning. So weird and funky stuff from other people, which has been really great. But what can be three, I guess, key takeaways for you, Georgia, or actionable insights that people can utilize within their own business?
Right now, focus on well-being. Be guided by the principles of your culture and be true to that, and focus on employee well-being. You've got a way to go yet before they can, get into out of reaction and into preparedness. provide certainty and clarity, and really that's important for that. But what you need to do for me is don't be one of those organisations that takes a hibernation mindset. This is the time to actually be preparing for response. And we've seen, I know I'm conscious of time, we've seen amazing innovation. We've seen distilleries start distilling hand sanitizer. We've seen restaurants that have closed down start to be delivering care packages and boxes. There's amazing things that businesses can do. So it's about, don't hibernate, look after your employees with their well-being, their connection, their contribution, their value add, be understanding, and be future focused, and be true to your culture. If your culture needs an overhaul, this is the time to do it.
Sure. I think with disruption comes innovation, which was spoken about a lot. And we're definitely in a disruptive time right now. And this is the time to make a stand, make a change. Sometimes changes are happening whether you like it or not. And I guess we've just got to be able to take and use that. And use it from an organisation and focus on your employees and use them to sort of help drive that change.
Yeah.
Because this is the time, like you said, it's all happening now, whether we wanted it to or not. And this is where organisations can really start driving some powerful changes. And this can be sort of powered through tech. This can be culture driven. It depends on your organisation and where you're currently at. Going back on that sort of top tools and kits and resources, thought I'd also just quickly sort of touch base that we are having another webinar next Thursday with Dr. Diane Harner, which is titled Looking After Your Team's Mental Health During a Pandemic. And look, I think that's incredibly insightful considering what we've spoken about today, Georgia, really focusing on mental health and well-being and putting employees first and being employee-centric. And that sort of webinar is going to touch on warning signs to look out for, how to approach and support team members who may be struggling. And look, we're still all learning this as an organisation and as industry. Again, more and more things are coming out, and so we'll also share resources that we've sort of come across that can help during this time. But look, we appreciate, and look, Georgia, I really appreciate you sort of co-hosting this with us. You've shared some really actionable insights, and I've definitely learned. I've filled my book up, but also appreciate everyone that's jumped on and really encourage, I guess, and sort of hard seeing we're not all sitting around a table having lunch. And this is a challenge, I guess. This is where innovation can come out of. But take to the streets, take to LinkedIn, whatever your call is, and continue the discussion, continue the conversation, because we're all learning and we can only learn together as a community moving forward.
Yep, and I'd encourage anyone who wants to have a further chat, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I can see on the Zoom meeting it says Georgia Reid. My name's actually Georgia Henry from Henry Reid. So Georgia Henry, you'll find me on LinkedIn, but I'm happy to continue a conversation with anyone who wants some extra ideas.
Most definitely. Feel free to reach out as well. I always love a yarn, especially when I'm sitting at home. It's something that keeps me going. So I love to have a chat, or chuck me a message on LinkedIn. And as well, we'll send you some more information. And Georgia, I know you're going to share, I guess, your sort of organisational development structure, if I've got that right, sorry. And then we'll also share some more information around that COVID-19 essentials package that might be valuable for organisations right now, or your community as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jarod.
Excellent. Look, thank you all for your time today. I'll let you get back to your busy days. Really appreciate everyone that jumped on. And again, appreciate your time, Georgia. Thank you very much.
Thanks.